Okay, so Marcia and I are here this morning to share with you guys about our experience at the Answers in Genesis Women's Conference that we went to in March. I hate public speaking, so Marcia was supposed to take over and do it all, but we didn't have time to make a game plan because somebody had to get sick. So if it all goes wrong, it's her fault. No, so the women's conference this year was the end of March, and yes, and Marcia and I went down for that. It was both of our first time going, and it was really, really good. Of course, pretty much anything that Answers in Genesis puts on is very good. So it was very nice. I have to say on my end, it was very nice going to a conference that you know you're going to get sound teaching. You don't have to question. I've been to other conferences locally before where you know, they're good and you get stuff out of it, but there's sometimes things that are said that kind of make you go and kind of make you question the rest of the message rather than just really taking it all in. And with this, you know that Answers in Genesis, and they've done their job, they've done the vetting, and they have quite a vetting process to be able to speak on their property at all, let alone at a conference of 2,000 women. So so it was just really nice knowing that I didn't have to question that. I thought that was probably, I wouldn't say one of my favorite things, but it was just really reassuring going down there and knowing that you're going to be filled with the truth. So Marcia and I kind of threw this trip together pretty last minute.
Like a month before?
Yeah, she reached out end of January, I think, to myself and Chelsea and Beth, who was about to have a baby, and was like, would any of you be interested in going to this? And it worked out that her and I were able to go this year, and so we split it's about a 10-hour drive, and we split the drive both ways, and so that made it really nice. And honestly, when you're riding down with someone that you get along with and
Who actually talks?
Not my husband. Road trips with my husband are not fun because he doesn't want the music loud because he can't see to drive when there's noise. And he doesn't want to talk. He just wants you to look out the window and not talk, which you all know me, and that doesn't happen. So I annoy the snot out of him, and he gets annoyed back. So it's just great. Yes. So it was really nice having someone to actually have a conversation with you on a 10-hour drive.
I feel like our drive added to the trip as well because we got to learn more about each other, and we got to talk a little bit more about like our relationship with the Lord, and I got to share about the discipleship class that I'm taking, and just kind of, it was like a full circle for us. And then after the conference as well, it was very nice because the conference kind of added to why you want to take a discipleship class, why you want your relationship with the Lord to become more intense, I guess. And it kind of helped me in a sense to understand why I should be reaching out and trying to teach the gospel even while I'm learning myself. So
yeah, definitely. It's it definitely pushes you in all the best ways. There's one thing that we did say we would do a little bit different. So we left on a Tuesday and we drove home on Sunday.
We listened to the message on the car ride.
Yes, we did. Well, what we could, because it was kind of skippy.
In and out,
Yeah. I think on our end, not on this end. Just put that
Going
there.
through different states.
Yes. And so we said we would give ourselves a little bit more time because we drove halfway Tuesday and then we drove the rest of the way on Wednesday. And we got there, and so the conference started Thursday about 1 o'clock, I think. So it was from 1 o'clock to I want to say like 6 or 7 on Thursday, and then Friday was from 9 to 5, and then there was a 2-hour dinner break, and then the Laura Story concert, which was amazing. Was at 7 p.m. and then Saturday was 9 to 5 again. So it was filled right up, and you get a lot of information, and they did a really good job. They do a really good job of putting in breaks.
Like 15 minutes every hour.
Yeah, between each speaker there's like a 15-minute to half an hour break, and there's bigger lunch breaks and stuff like that. So they did a really good job of like making sure you had breaks to get up and move around and stuff like that. But you're getting a lot of information thrown at you, and so we said we'd almost want to take like that Sunday the next day to just watch the message from like our hotel room instead of in the car, and just at least chill on Sunday to like breathe. Because even though we were away from our kids and like there wasn't that aspect of our lives, like it was still exhausting, just all the information, but it was like a good kind, like the kind of exhaustion that you want. But it still, like, it wasn't like I got back Monday and went right back to work and it was like, okay, back into life. And you don't really feel like, so taking like an extra day, even once you got home, to unpack and relax, and would probably be more beneficial next year, I've decided. But yes, so in the conference tickets, so our tickets this year, we bought them in like January or February, and we still got like a little bit of a discount off them. I think the full price is $179, and that is for the 3-day conference. It also includes a 7-day pass to both the Ark and the Creation Museum, which if you look up,
consecutive 7 days, so you can go
Yes.
before or after the conference.
but once you pick up that pass, you have
7
7
days.
full days. So I mean, if you look at like a 3-day hopper pass
It was like
to
$130 or something like that.
for all 3 of you, or
No.
for you and Keith,
For one person, for a 3-day
For the
pass,
3-day hopper?
I believe it was like $100 and some dollars. So you're
definitely getting your money's
getting your
worth.
money's worth. 'Cause you're getting 7 full days at both parks if you want.
Yes.
I've been there, so I don't need as much time to go through it, because once you've gone through it once, I mean, yes, you do pick up things. Like I picked up things going through it a second time, and I was like, wow, I didn't get a chance to look at everything the first time.
Especially when you had your child.
Yes, sure. So going on this women's conference, you don't have any kids, and there's not a lot of children there. Like there are other visitors during the conference, outside that aren't coming to the conference, but majority of the women are just there by themselves. There's no men allowed at the conference, besides the security people and the
And
speakers.
Ken Ham.
And yes.
Yeah.
But they say right on there for the registration, no men allowed.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So it's not like your husband can tag
yes,
along.
correct.
It's but yeah, so the full ticket price is $179, and even at that, it is by far worth it. But we were still part of the early bird deal. It was like $139 or something like that. And so price wise of the ticket, it's uncomparable, the amount of stuff that you get. Plus, when we walked in and got registered, they handed us this bag. I came prepared. They handed us this bag, which is a really, really nice canvas tote. I mean, and every woman that was there got one. Filled with just goodies, just so much things. Pens, this notebook for Peggy that likes to take notes. I thought
It was
Peggy's
awesome.
coming with us next year, by the way. So I was like, Peggy's gonna love this. It's a built-in note-taking book, and they have it separated out by like speakers. So every speaker has like their own section of where you can take their notes. So it's really well done. And then in that they have the conference schedule. They have backgrounds on the speakers. This alone was really
There
awesome.
was some other things,
And
I
then
don't remember what else was in
This
there.
book was in there.
Yes.
That they gave you, and there's other stuff in there too.
You got free water and coffee the entire conference.
Mhm.
At any time, they just have it in the back. They did a free kind of like, what is it? Charcuterie, or however you say that word, like spread.
Yes.
For one of the, I think the concert evening.
Yes,
they
I
did
believe
that, so that was free. And then you have to pretty much pay for your lunch during it. But they did bring Chick-fil-A on site, so you could get that if you wanted.
Everybody's like, yes.
Yeah. They're like, and so this year we got a lot of feedback, and we actually brought Chick-fil-A, but there's only like 300 meals, so if you want it, you gotta reserve it. And so everyone's like, after that, everyone's like running. I want Chick-fil-A. But yeah, so and then this wasn't one that they gave us, but it was for sale. It was like $9, and it's a devotional, and it's the same theme, some of the same speakers, but it's a devotional book, so I got it. But yeah, there's just a lot of stuff.
And at the conference, so they give you a chance the whole time you're at the conference to buy tickets for the next year's conference at a discounted rate. And it's only for that weekend of the conference. So we got ours for $99. So $99 for a 7-day pass to both Creation and the Ark Encounter. And
Plus
it's
the
your
conference.
conference. So
Yeah.
that was,
And this is next year's conference.
and I believe
It's
right
called the
now it is $119 to sign up. So if you want to, that's a really good deal. So.
And I will say, right now we have an Airbnb booked that can hold up to 6 people, and we only have 3 filling it out right now. So we have room for 3 more in that, and there's free cancellation
So we could always
up until February or March or something like that. So if we need to cancel, I think it would be really awesome if we need to cancel and find a bigger Airbnb because so many people want to come. I'm just saying, just putting it out there. I'm willing to do that.
Amanda, what are the dates next year? Or roughly, is it back in March?
March 30th to April 1st. So it's always
Thursday, Friday,
sounds like it's
Saturday.
always around that
Yeah,
same time of
yeah.
year. Yeah. Just happy birthday, Evelyn. Bye. Her birthday's March 25th, so it was like, okay, birthday party. Okay, done. Okay, good. Bye. I'm going on vacation. So yes, I just wanted to show you guys some of the stuff some of the goodies that we got. That was again included in the conference price. Which I was like,
If you want to go and your husband doesn't want you to go for some reason, come talk to me. I'm very persuasive. Ask Dan.
Hey Dan, well, I know I'm already here and spending all this money. What would you think about me spending a little bit more and buy the conference ticket for next year?
And honestly, it's like I had to tell Dan, it's not a vacation. You are getting a lot out of it. You are building your relationship with the Lord. And what husband doesn't want their wife to build their relationship with the Lord? Because in return, it builds your relationship with each other. And ultimately, that's what we all want. So.
Yeah. So, now that I've put that little plug in, let's tell you a little bit about what we learned at the conference. Because there was a few things that really stood out to each of us,
Yes.
I think.
Different speakers.
Yes.
We liked different speakers. There were some speakers that we both were like.
But I'm sure that there were other people that.
There were, because there were a lot of people that were applauding and everything. It's just, like teachers. Some people like different teaching styles, and that's I think what it boiled down to. The one speaker we both didn't really love was more like a history professor, and I was like, oh. This is bringing me back to my college days. But
I did not like history class
I
in
still
school,
got
and I
some
still don't
stuff.
like it now.
Yeah, I still got
Yeah.
some stuff out of them. But
And I think we did get like a little like bits and pieces out of each speaker, but there were certain speakers. There was one speaker that really spoke to me. She was a youth outreach coordinator, and I was just like,
all in.
I was all in. I loved it. I was soaking in everything. And Marcia didn't. When we talked later that night, she was like, I know you really liked her, but I didn't get as much out of that or whatever. And so I think it's just, there's going to be different speakers that speak to different people, different areas. Obviously, currently I am the junior youth leader. So when I heard like youth outreach coordinator, I was like, okay, turn on the ear a little bit more. And so it's just, I think that's it's really neat to have all these different types of speakers. Even the way they present stuff is gonna be geared towards different people picking up things. And so out of 2,000 women, I mean, there's going to be different types of learners. There's going to be different types of, walks of life. And so people with different backgrounds, they're going to speak to different people. And I think that's something that's really cool about this conference is if you don't get something or don't get as much out of one speaker, you might get a ton out of another speaker that the person right next to you doesn't get as much out of it. And so it's just really, I found that to be really cool.
A lot of the speakers we got so much out of. I remember both of us at certain points of the conference were like, just because we were so overwhelmed with all of the information that we were getting, it's like my brain has to shut down for a moment because I'm overwhelmed with all of this information that I'm learning right now. And it was so good that I just wanted to share it with people. Like I actually started taking notes and I'm like, okay, if we're gonna present at women's breakfast, this is
someone
what I
had
want to
mentioned it to us. I can't remember who.
And
I think maybe Grandma.
I can't explain
I can't remember.
the amount of information that we learned and that we took in, and you could just tell that God put us there because we needed to hear some of it. At certain points, like I broke down crying.
I remember that.
And
I'm a sympathetic crier, so
Yeah.
I broke down crying.
so it was so much, and it was the right kind of information that like everything that had gone on with me recently, it spoke directly to me, and just the words, it was like it's overwhelming. Like you can tell God's presence is there. And then when you hear 2,000 women sing together and like literally in sync, and then at the end say amen, just that, if you've ever been with 2,000 women in a church, it's pretty much what it was, and everyone says amen together, it's like you get complete cold chills. It's amazing.
There was one time, and obviously I really like worship. So I really enjoyed all of the photo sisters. It was their name, was the women who did the majority of the worship. And the one played cello, the one played violin, played piano too, and they were playing their instruments and they were singing, and they're sisters, so their harmonies were like amazing. And I was just like, oh, this is heaven. This is what it's gonna sound like when the angels sing. And it was just really good. But I loved when they would get the women singing and then step back from the mic. And that's one of my favorite things even here is when Abel or Ashley says, sing it out, and I hear the whole church, even here in our church, you hear the whole church just praising the Lord, little to no instruments, and even here I get cold chills. But there, with 2,000 women, and we were in the front row because I wanted to be right in front of Laura's story.
We got there early.
Yes. I was like, she's gonna be singing right there, so I want to be standing right here. And so to hear like 2,000 women behind you, all praising the Lord in unison, was like, oh wow, this is so cool. And like you couldn't help but just sit there and be like, oh, this is amazing. That was one of my really favorite takeaways was worshiping with 2,000 other believers. It's really cool. It's just really cool. And knowing you're in the presence of that many like-minded people that are striving to grow their relationship with the Lord, like it's just a really cool feeling.
And to be around that many Christians, like, and Keith and I said it when we went and visited on our own before, but we said it also is, you know, you don't have to worry, like we could leave our bags and you didn't worry about someone coming and taking your stuff, you know, like stealing it, because they're Christians. They're not gonna, Christians.
They do have quite a few non-Christian people actually on their campuses, which is really cool.
But like with that, like you didn't hear swearing, you know, it was just, you're in this Christian community and you don't get that when you're in the world. So it was just nice to go to a park where it's like, wow, this is what God intended. This is the world that I want to live in, and it was very just
Dan and I have a new retirement plan. They were advertising for that. They need people to come work at the Ark, and I took a picture of it and I said, new retirement plan? Question mark? So I mean, we joke about it, but never know. New York State's going downhill fast.
A lot of the speakers too, all of the speakers, I think, had wonderful testimonies as well. And it's like, we talked to a lot of the other women that went to the conference as well, and it's just like everyone's so inviting and they want to open up and share with you about what they've been through. And, you know, like we talked to a lot of women who homeschool, and it's like, wow, that's really pulling on my heartstrings because I can do that too. Like, these are working moms who, you know,
Make it work.
Yeah, they make it
There
work.
was one mom that she has a full-time job and she homeschools her kids in the evenings. That's the schedule that works for them, and that they make it work. And I thought that was really convicting and really cool. Yeah, it was really cool. So there's a couple things specifically for speakers that like stood out, like quotes or whatever, that I'd like to share you. So our first speaker was Ken Ham, and he's amazing. You're gonna hear that word a lot because it's all amazing.
Him and George have a lot in common, I think. I was like, when he talked, I was like, wow.
Like, yeah, I was like, okay, I'm listening to George,
Yeah.
the older and yeah,
Yeah.
wow, yeah. Which I love accents too, so I was like, Allison Millar, when she used to speak, I just was like, talking. I love accents. But Ken Ham drilled into our heads. If anyone ever asks you a question regarding your faith, regarding anything, and he goes, I want you to say it with me. You start with Genesis 1 to 11. And he goes, any question you have about anything regarding the Bible, your faith, or whatever, you start in Genesis 1 to 11. And then he went through his entire thing, and he was like, oh, you have a question about this? And he'd go back to Genesis 1 to 11, and he just showed
And
us.
every other speaker did the same thing.
Yes.
That was drilled into our head. Genesis 1 through 11.
Yes.
That's where you need to start, and that's where you can answer everything.
Yes, exactly. So that was really cool. But then he actually ended his thing with a quote that really stood out to me that I liked, and it said, "You can't be salt until you have salt." And I really liked that because, well, it's true. But he was talking about how you can't be the salt that someone else needs unless you have that salt in your life. And so talking about like growing your relationship with the Lord and how important it is to, you don't have to memorize. And I know George has said this before too. You don't have to be the best memory verse, but you have to know where to go. You have to be able to open up your Bible, and that requires you knowing your Bible. And he spoke on that too, and I really liked the way he said that. You can't be salt until you have salt. Anything we can hear? No?
No, Genesis 1 through 11. That's where that's.
Yeah.
He was a great speaker, and that's what I have. Genesis 1 through 11.
Yes. So then next, Dr. Georgia Purdom spoke, and she's actually the one who coordinates all the women's
His right-hand woman.
Yes. I like that you said woman and not man. But something that she said that spoke out to me was that there was two things. Churches that depart from the word will soon find that God has departed from them. And I was like, yes, yeah, that's true. That's very true. But it kind of like, the way she said it, like, kind of made you like, because you think about it, even not in like a church aspect, but like a personal aspect. Like if you depart from God's word, you will soon find that God is, like, that's kind of how I heard it when she spoke it. And then she also said, compromise is the cancer of the church, and we must rid Christ's body of it. And I was like, oh, yeah. Because it's easy sometimes to, I guess, want to compromise because it's easier, you know? But when you think of it as every little compromise you make, think of it as a cancer spreading. Even the tiniest little compromise, that's you letting that cancer spread in yourself, in Christ's body, and yeah. And so I was like, all right, well.
I actually had some stuff written down for her too.
Yeah.
Well, one thing she said, just because you have good morals and are a good person doesn't mean that you'll go to heaven. You need Jesus. Satan is not against good morals. Satan's against Jesus. So that really was like,
I had that written
you know,
down
a lot
too.
of people, right, you know,
Satan is not against
a lot of
morals.
people say, well, I'm a good person, I do good things, you know. It doesn't matter if you're a good person, it doesn't matter how much good you do. If you don't have Jesus in your heart, it's not gonna, you're not gonna get to heaven. There's one way.
Yep.
He is the way.
Yeah. So there's that. And then it's on to Patricia Engler, which I have
Her
lots.
favorite.
That was
This is
that was
mine.
this is mine. This is a youth outreach coordinator. So as you can see the difference in
She's from Canada.
yeah. Which I also like because my dad was born Canadian. So I was like, oh, she's Canadian. We have something in common. And yeah. And so she actually, what she did a backpacking trip, which is called 180 and 365.
Yeah.
I think something like that. Something like that. 360 and 180.
Because it had to be in in a little bit of time because of her visa or something. She had to be, only could be out of the country for so much
Yes.
time.
So she started in Canada, where she's from, and she kind of like, she reminded me of Nikita a little bit, and where she didn't quite know where she was going or how she was going to pay for it. She just trusted that the Lord was going to provide. But she did it all, like, she went around to different, or maybe that's what she's currently doing. Went around to different colleges. No,
She
that was,
did that, yeah.
that was when, okay. She's on another one now. I'm following her. But she went around to different colleges and spoke to college students, specifically Christian college students, and their experiences. And so I have a lot on her, man.
She has a
But
lot of testimony.
one thing that spoke out to me that I was like, kind of hit me a little bit because of the age that our youth group is. She said, I knew that I was born to be on the road and in the missions field at age 11. Age 11, she knew that. And so I was just like, wow, how amazing is that to be so sure of what you're supposed to be doing for the Lord at such a young age. And she's only like mid-20s now. She's younger. But to have done all this stuff in just that short amount of time, it made me feel a little inferior, which I think is okay. It's humbling. I could talk about her and the next speaker for hours. And the next speaker is probably, I think, both of our favorite.
Yeah.
His name is Bill Jack, and he
Cool name.
Yeah, he is works for Worldview Academy, and he talked about tearing up tracks that lead to destruction. And so he did like a lot of train references, and he started out his thing by showing a clip from the movie Polar Express, and it's towards the end of the movie, and it's where Tom Hanks, as the conductor, says to the little boy as he's getting off the train, he said, there's one thing you need to know about trains. It doesn't matter where they're going, you just have to get on. And he flipped from that video being on the screen, immediately the screen flopped over to a picture of the trains leading to Auschwitz. And I was like the whole crowd went like that, like simultaneously just gasped, because you're like, holy cow. You know, it sounds like such, and this is what he said, it sounds like such a nice quote. It doesn't matter where they're going, it just matters that you get on and you're like, yeah, you know, oh yeah. And it's kind of a throwaway line in the movie, but then when you think of it in the case of the Holocaust, and you're like, whoa, you know, what it, like, that's crazy. And so he went into talking about how
they knew
one,
people knew
yes,
the trains were going and didn't stop it. Like the Holocaust could have been
yes,
stopped.
yes.
They turned music up. It was talking about a church nearby who they sang louder when they heard the trains go by
because you could hear them screaming.
And they just sang louder and louder and louder, and it's just like
yeah. And he said, one's worldview is much like a train. One tends to climb on board as a child and merely go along for the ride. And so when we're talking about worldviews, we're talking about like a biblical worldview, or like a worldview. Yeah, that sounds wrong. They said it better because they're professional speakers and I'm not. But
We love you anyway.
and he said, two of the biggest obstacles to overcome when sharing one's faith are ignorance and apathy. A quote that he kept saying over and over again was, language lays the tracks that are the ideas that carry the boxcars full of people. And so talking about even like trying to this is a couple months ago, trying to think of how exactly he said it because it was so good, but the language and how you speak in your day-to-day, and kind of like, and I relate it back to George a lot because George is who you guys hear from a lot. So if I can kind of put it in a George term, then I know you guys are going to get it because you obviously enjoy his preaching or you wouldn't still be here. So in, and now I don't know where I was going. Great. See, this is why I don't know what to speak. Yeah, I'm done. It's gone. It was there and now it's gone. So, but yes, the train reference that he did in general, and he kept going back to it. So he was talking about like when they were building like the Continental Railroad, and how there's like two different companies working, and they ended up meeting in the middle, and however much track they laid, they got paid for. And so he goes, when they end up meeting in the middle, and there's like a special like golden spike or something like that in the middle. I don't know much about history. Clearly, you both didn't like the history one that spoke. And so he was talking about how when they met in the middle, like everyone's like, woohoo, yay! But the people who are actually like doing it, they're like, oh, well, now we're laid off, yay, sort of thing. And so he was talking about like how tracks are laid and stuff like that. And he was talking about like what it would, like how people think of like stopping a train, and like how would you stop a train on a track? That, you know, how would you stop a train that's headed in a certain direction? And in reference to the church moving away from God's word and moving away from, how do you stop a train headed in that direction? And he said, there's only really one logical way that you can stop a train headed in any direction. You tear up the tracks. And then he looked at all of us and he goes, Now, I'm not advocating that you go out and tear up tracks in people's lives. And then he goes, oh yes, I am. And then he goes, I'm not advocating that you go out and you tear up tracks to Planned Parenthood. Oh yes, I am. And he was just really good. And then again, he said, language lays the tracks that are the ideas that carry the boxcars full of people. And he was a very animated, very active speaker. And so he really did a good job of keeping your attention. And so I think that's probably why both of us. He's sarcastic.
Yeah.
He reminded me of Dan a lot. He did. His sarcasm reminded me of my husband a lot. I was like, oh, wow, okay.
He's very sarcastic, but he knew his stuff. And
Yes.
he's not afraid to tear up tracks. He's not afraid to...
He wasn't afraid to poke your buttons.
No.
Because he's poking them with the right reason. You know what I mean? And so he's like,
He's
you know,
telling
he's
you
one of those
to
people
do-
who's like, I don't care if I offend you if I'm speaking the truth.
Exactly.
And
he's
it was-
going to tell you what's in the Bible, and he doesn't care if you agree with it or not.
Yeah.
Because that's what's in the Bible. And I feel like all of us should be more like that. We
And
should not be
seeing someone
afraid
who
what
was so
someone's going to think.
outspoken about it too was like, I can be that brave.
Yes.
I can be that brave, you know, and it kind of like fueled you. So, yeah, that was that. I liked him a lot. He was my favorite. And the next was Martha. And Martha we struggled with a little bit.
Yeah.
Martha was after lunch. Martha was after lunch, and so it didn't help that we had full stomachs and we were
I
like,
think she was just like, she was very monotone, you know, just that she was an older lady who, what did she actually do? I don't remember. That's how bad this is.
it's not bad.
I
It
know.
just wasn't for us, that specific section.
There's other people who did relate to her.
Yes, like the people behind us were loving her.
Yes.
But she just wasn't our cup of tea. There's nothing wrong with that.
Oh, she was a counselor. That's what she was.
Yes.
Yes. She was a
Nothing
counselor.
against counselors. I don't know if we have any counselors in the room. She wasn't
But I
our-
remember her saying, I do remember her saying that, so when she started
Don't let
out
anyone get
as, I
offended.
guess, a Christian, she had to put like little memory verses. So that way when she was talking to her client, she had to look down, and so that way she could say the verse.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, I think she'd know what she was talking about, but she was reading it from her little cheat sheet papers. But she's like, eventually I didn't need those cheat sheet papers anymore because I memorized them. And I was like, oh, like thinking in my life, like I need to have little cheat sheet papers all over the place because
Yeah.
that's gonna help me memorize.
She had them like hidden on the back of her desk, she said.
Yeah.
Where she could see like her little cheat sheet memory verses, and so she'd be like, well, yeah, and she'd say it, you know, and they're like, whoa, you know, it's just really cool. And then
I do remember that.
yes, Kyle Mann spoke next, and he was the
Oh.
Babylon
Oh
B.
yes, never mind. Wrong person.
He
I
was
need
from
pictures.
he was from Babylon B, which is a fake satire.
Any of you heard of this?
site. Okay, it's super funny. I follow them now, and I almost pee myself daily. No, he was really funny. He's one of the writers for Babylon B, and so his entire speech was like sharing a ton of the Babylon B memes, and it's pretty much just a comedy show. And so that was a little refreshing after Martha. We woke back up. She didn't stand a chance after, at least not with Marcia and I, not after lunch. We
I
were.
think they fed you turkey, and you know what happens after you.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly.
With the buffet that George raved about.
Yes, we did have the buffet at the Ark. So they also had a U.S. congressman from Louisiana come in, Mike Johnson, and he.
He was a politician. There we go. That's the one that I was thinking.
Yes, I just said.
I know.
And he talked about how to fight like a Christian. And honestly, for me, it was just really refreshing. Like, we do still have some good ones in there, you know, and like, you know, you do, but like to see, you don't see it. And he was talking about, you know, like the Christian fight on Capitol Hill, and like it was just like, we have some good ones. Like, yay! But there are some in there still, and so just, you know, I keep voting, keep trying to get those type of people in, because they are still fighting. And then that's what he said. He goes, I can't tell you how hard it is at times, but it's very rewarding knowing that I'm fighting on the right side of things, even though it really doesn't feel like it sometimes. And I was like, yeah. You know, and so he was talking about how to fight like a Christian. And he had 7 principles. 1 was to commit your heart. 2 was love your neighbor. 3, remember your place. 4, guard your witness. 5, control your emotion. 6, identify your enemy. And he was talking about how like the Romans used to lock shields. So that's where like loving your neighbor and remembering your place and all that stuff comes into play, with identify your enemy. And then 7, defend his truth. And he said, one of my convictions is that regardless of what it means for my political career, I will always defend his truth. And I was like, yeah. So,
I normally don't like listening to politicians talk.
Correct.
I actually enjoyed listening to him talk.
Correct. Yes. And then next is Debbie Meter.
Probably my favorite, even though I didn't write a lot down because I was just so like into listening
Yes.
to her that I was like, oh.
So she was,
A mom.
yes, she was a mom. She was a
That
mom.
was her big thing. It's mom time.
Yes.
She's like every mom needs mom time.
And so they actually live out near Seattle.
You remember
Seattle?
that? Did you write that down?
I didn't. It was out where all the riots and stuff were happening. Seattle?
Oh yeah, she. Yeah.
Oh, she was talking.
Portland.
Portland? Yeah, okay. It's the same
Yeah.
state as Seattle, right?
No, Seattle, Washington.
No, okay, never
Oh,
mind.
they're near each other.
Out there somewhere. North, west? Is that right? I really suck at geography too, pretty much. Just don't ask me about anything. My best grade in high school was French class and gym. So. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But yeah, she was.
I remember now. Sorry, I'm just remembering.
But she was talking about how to get like. She specifically was talking about getting involved with the public schools, like as a mom and as a Christian mom, being involved with your local public schools and different ways to get involved with that, and making sure that she spoke about CRT, critical race theory, in the schools, and how even though it's becoming more prevalent, it's been around for a long time, and a lot of people don't realize that. Anything else you want to share from her?
She said that all schools should have a site counselor. If your school doesn't have one, they should definitely look into bringing one in, and that's pretty much if a student has a question about their gender or their religion, or these controversial topics, that their counselor should be giving them the correct answers and not you can be whatever you want to be, or or the wrong answers.
And that's specifically what this type of site counsel is like Christian biblical worldview. There should be that option, not just the you can be whatever you want to be. What gender do you want to be today? Would you like to be a cat?
Yeah. The
Yeah.
one thing though that I did write down, so she has kind of like what Peggy does, like the women's group, but it's called Mom Time Study, and it's, I think hers is, the program is called Choose Life. I wrote that down. I didn't actually write details, but it made me start thinking like I would really like to have another group off of Peggy's possibly, where like working moms can come, you know, also, because I feel like a lot of the times, you know, like I work during the women's group, so I feel like I'm missing out on a lot of that. And I know there's other moms in the church too, or, you know, not moms, but just women who don't have a chance to go to that. And this woman, Debbie, has almost like a book study type thing that she goes off of, and she'll send you the information, and you just kind of follow like what study she's doing, and she's kind of like your leader, you know, giving you ideas of what to follow and things like that. But,
Book clubs.
Yeah.
Definitely something that we could build within the church.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
On to the next one. Laura's story.
Amanda's absolute favorite.
So she did her concert Friday night, and then Saturday morning she did worship. So every time we came back from like, so Thursday afternoon they started with worship. Friday morning they started with worship. Friday after lunch they started with worship again. Saturday morning they started with worship. And then Saturday afternoon after lunch, they started with worship. So there's several worship sessions. So Laura Story did her concert Friday night, but then she also started with worship on Saturday morning. And then she spoke about being rooted, but being rooted in God's peace. Really, that spoke to me a lot, even just in the season of life that I'm in, because with 2 children and other children at my house as well, it can be a lot of chaos constantly, and not a whole lot of peace. And especially since having Evelyn, I have struggled with a lot of anxiety that I've never really struggled with anxiety before, but through Evelyn's pregnancy, I had a lot of anxiety, and I think it has a lot to do with the 2 miscarriages I had, and so I just kind of was always on edge, waiting for like something bad to happen. And I just kept telling myself, like when I first found out I was pregnant, okay, just get through the first trimester and you'll feel better. Like just get to that safe spot. But then we got there, and some of like the nausea and stuff went away. And then instead of my anxiety getting better because I was in the safe point, it got worse because I didn't have like those symptoms, and so is something wrong? Like something's got to be wrong, but then I have to like talk myself down off the ledge and say, no, nothing's wrong. You're just past the point where those symptoms are going to be really bad anymore. It was like, okay, now I just got to get to the point where I can start to feel her moving. And then I got to the point where I started feeling her moving, and I was like, okay, I feel a little bit better now. I can feel her moving. But then if I couldn't feel her or didn't feel her move for a while, which is totally normal. I mean, they say like unless you don't feel them for like an entire day, they're fine because they sleep too. And I would literally like push my stomach, like wake up and move so I know you're okay. The anxiety didn't go away, and then it never really went away. No matter what point I kept saying, just get her here, just get her in your arms and you'll feel better. And that helped to a certain extent, but then I was anxious about other things, about sleeping, about is she gonna go to sleep and not wake up, and if she would, like, as she got moving, she'd bump her head at all, and I was like, like, there was one time where she threw herself backwards and hit the back of her head, and she cried, but it was right before bedtime, because they never get her when you have time to monitor them for a couple hours. It's always right before they're getting ready to go to sleep, which is exactly what you're not supposed to do if they have a concussion. So I literally slept on the floor in her room next to her bed because I was so anxious that I was going to put my baby to bed and she was not going to wake up. And so I have dealt with a lot of anxiety around, I kind of always have around my kids in general, but even more heightened. And I kept telling myself it was going to get better. And I don't think it helps that I've had a lot of hormonal imbalance issues since having her. And so I feel a little bit crazy at times, like I just can't get a grip on reality. And so when she was talking about staying rooted in God's peace, I was like, oh, this is what I need. I need to, and it was a really good, she gave lots, and I won't share it all because she spoke for an hour, and we're at that point now too. But she gave some really good, like, logical ways to stay rooted in God's peace, and I was like, oh, but it also takes, I've found since coming home, it also takes putting that into practice too. It's great to get how you can help yourself, but you do have to still put it into practice for it to work, which in the chaos of life at times does get hard. But that's where being disciplined for the Lord and in your walk with the Lord that's where discipline comes in. You don't always have the time, you have to make the time. You have to find the time if that's what you're wanting for your life.
So one passage that I wrote down that she did speak on, and it has to do with anxiety as well, is Philippians 4 verses 4 through 7, and I'll read it really quick. It says, "Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say, rejoice. Let your gentle spirit be known to all men. The Lord is near. Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all comprehension, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." I thought that's something that we should all read that, and we should all remember that, we have all these anxieties, fears. As a mom, it's constant. It doesn't matter how old your child is. I know I only have a 3-year-old, but I give my mom anxiety. I know my mom still loses sleep over stupid things that I've done. Every mom in here probably can say that as well. It doesn't matter how old your child is. We have to remember that whatever happens, it's part of God's plan. And I say whatever happens, your child could die. It's part of God's plan. There's a reason. Our job as parents is to make sure that our children are brought up with the Lord. We share the gospel, and we try to help them accept God in their hearts. They need to believe. That's our job. And we are not responsible. When they are adults, things happen. Our job is to teach and to do the best we can. And what happens, that's what happens. And I feel like that's something that everybody needs to hear. So,
It's hard to walk out.
it is. It is very hard. But the more that you pray and let God take over, let Him be the Lord of your life, that anxiety will disappear or lighten. So, yeah.
That's that. So that's that. The next was our history teacher. No, he was good. It was actually really nice to see he was a big burly black man.
What was his name?
Daryl Harrison. And he was speaking on critical race theory.
He actually does Just Thinking podcast, if anyone's interested in podcasts.
Yeah. he said, critical race theory believes that capitalism is the fundamental cause of racism. But CRT is fundamentally a philosophy of class struggle. And he was talking about the same thing Georgia said before. We're all the same color, brown, just different shades of it. And it was really nice to hear from a black man about critical race theory, and that, like, okay, it's not just like, I'm trying to think of how to word this appropriately. Like, at times as a white person, I am made to feel like just because I'm white, I cannot understand or relate or at all to the life that a person of color lives. And to a certain extent, I'm sure that is true. But it was really nice to hear from a black man that not every black person looks at me and thinks, oh, look at that white girl that's privileged. Like, there are logical Christians that can see both sides of it. My mom and I have said through all of everything the past 2 years that it's really hard being that logical person that can see both sides of things. I can see this side and I can see why these people feel this way, and I can see this side and I can see why these people feel this way, and I feel like I'm kind of like that middle person that doesn't really have an island to go to because I don't fit in with anyone. And he also said, you know, like, it's okay to not fit in. It's okay to not, you shouldn't fit in as a Christian. And so, yes, he brought a lot of history into it, which is where he started to kind of lose us. Because we're not history people. But he was really good. And then I don't have a lot of notes on the next speaker. Abby Owen, she was the Spanish.
Oh yeah, she was like 20?
She was like 20. Yeah.
Something like that?
And her family had worked for Answers in Genesis for quite a while.
Yeah.
And now she herself was
This is her first time speaking at an English conference. She normally speaks at
Spanish
Spanish
the
conferences.
Spanish conference.
So she's like,
Answers in
if
Genesis.
you don't understand me, please bear with me, because she's still kind of learning her English. And
Yes.
I thought that was really neat that she was there and spoke to us, and her
Yeah.
age, like, she's so,
Wise beyond her years.
yes, and she knows the Bible and she lives the Bible. Sorry, my.
It's really encouraging to see, as a parent, to see kids, I call her a kid myself, to see someone so young that is so knowledgeable. Like, as a parent, sometimes I feel like you feel like you're not getting anywhere with your kids, you know? Like, you tell them the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, and you're just not getting anywhere, and you don't think they're getting it. But you can see where someone who really was raised with and just surrounded by biblical truths, how that's played a role in her life now as a very young adult. And just knowing that it is possible, I guess, gave me a lot of hope. Like, oh, it is possible. Okay, kids do turn out okay coming out. You know, like, you hear a lot about kids walking away from the church. And so just to see where she was raised in church and she hasn't wavered in her faith at all, becoming a young adult, and in fact, she's even dove deeper. It was really encouraging as a parent to see that. And then I think that brings us to our last speaker, which is Roger Patterson, and his testimony was really, really cool because he actually went to college under for a science degree. And
He is a science professor, I believe.
he now does like the science programs for Answers in Genesis, but he did not he was
Is
not
it-
raised in the church. He, as an adult, became a Christian. Actually, after, I believe he said it was after Ken Ham and Bill Nye had their debate
Yes.
there however many years back. And he goes, I started to see the science and how the science actually really does back up what the Bible is saying. And he goes, being someone who is raised in the science community and went to college for a science degree, he was saying that like you're told this and told that, and you just believe it as truths even though it's not actually truths. Like the evolutionary theory is technically a theory, not a truth. And but it's taught, and this is how it is in schools and stuff, it's taught as a truth. Or no, he was raised as a Mormon. That's what he was. So I was wrong in that he wasn't raised, but it's different. Yes. Anyways, so his testimony was really cool in how he came to the Lord, and now how he uses his background in science and his knowledge in science for the Lord, and works at Answers in Genesis now. Like, I don't know if any of you follow, is it the Answers in Genesis Facebook page or the Ark Encounter Facebook page, and they do live videos a lot where they do like, they have like a panel table. He's on that panel quite often.
Yeah, he helps vet the speakers and things.
He does, yes. And so it's just really cool. It was really cool hearing him speak and knowing how the Lord had done a complete 180 in his life, and taken what I'm sure Satan meant to use as his destruction, and has now used it as, this is now his career with Answers in Genesis for the Lord, and just, it was really cool.
He also mentioned that they do summer camps through Answers in Genesis, and they're kind of like science summer camps. So it says explore days, hands-on science education. There's different days for different age groups. And then there's homeschool curriculum called high school labs. So if anyone's interested in that.
Yes. We have, if there's like the whole front of this is filled with
Like ads.
different like ads for different things. So if anybody ever wants to look through these, you're welcome to. Just let us know. We can look through. But yeah, so say all that to say that we are going again next year. Peggy's coming with us.
There are different
At least
speakers
Peggy.
next year.
There are different speakers.
I
Yeah.
don't
Yes,
have.
Ellen Stuffy, Uncle Stuffy.
Yeah, I didn't have that written.
I'm sure
down.
Peggy probably knows the
Yeah.
speakers because
They haven't announced all of them yet either, I don't believe, so there might be some surprises that we don't know about yet. But like I said, I believe it's $119 right now. I don't know when that changes.
and
I
you
think
can
that-
register at answersforwomen.org
Yes.
if you want to.
And I think that changes to the 149, 149, something like
139.
that. I wanna say like January, so you still have a little bit of time. If you wanna go, I mean, you can feel free to talk to us, ask us more questions. We'd love to have you go, and it's not all the same speakers, so you're gonna get something different than we got last year.
Is the book that you have, is that available anywhere?
This,
Well, either one.
It's a conference guide, you probably could get, and they have a lot left over, so I'm thinking.
both of these books, I'm sure, are
Those are
available.
on the I think, website.
Yeah, this is by Answers in Genesis. I'm not sure if this one is or not.
I mean, but can I just put in a side plug? I
Yeah.
know George has talked to me as like the homeschooling side of thing when it comes to curriculum and other things, that the church and him personally has some kind of relationship with buying materials at a discounted rate. So there's certain things that come from Answers in Genesis, and I think another group that he can do and purchase differently than if we would jump on Amazon to buy. So if there's something in particular, George has an option in relationship with them.
So, Chelsea just said the early bird is until September, the 119, early bird price is until September, and then it goes up after that. But like I said, we have an Airbnb right now that's booked. It holds 6 people. We only have 3. I have free cancellation through, I want to say February or March. So if I need to cancel it and find a bigger Airbnb,
We would want to do that soon though, because they are filling up fast.
yeah.
There's also a group discount if you book more than 6 tickets at once.
I think it's only the group discount. I think is $119 because I don't know if
This
there's a
is $20 for tickets.
It's
It's 20 total.
maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I would love to get a big group of women to go down because it was really good and you'll get a lot out of it. So if you're interested,
chat with us.
yeah. And that's all, folks.